First and foremost, the distinguished panel that you're going to hear from, and secondly, all of you. And one of the reasons that we did that was what Secretary Kerry did with launching Our Ocean Conference in spotlighting the role that ocean plays in global affairs and carrying this forward so efficiently and effectively and bringing so much of the resources to weigh in on what we need to do to not only protect the health of the oceans, but also benefit from all the resources that ocean has in contributing to human welfare. The Ocean Pavilion shares a similar, albeit a different, motivation. We are not talking about producing resources to deal with ocean matters, but we are talking about how ocean is ignored in multilateral environmental agreements, starting with the Climate Convention. And we brought this to the Blue Zone 3 years ago, and my good friend Dionysia is here. She was a strong supporter of it, and not only that, she ran a phenomenal Our Ocean conference in Athens earlier in the year. So our goal is really to focus attention on ocean matters specific to the language. And Anna Maria, another dear friend who is going to be moderating the session, and I, with lots of other colleagues, work very much on that. So we have been successful in bringing about the connection between Our Ocean Conference and the Ocean Pavilion. And a minister, I don't know if you know this, but I spent 10 years in Korea, first as head of the United Nations office and then as part of the senior management of the Green Climate Fund. So I have a particular affection for Korea, and I'm delighted that you would be hosting the Our Ocean Conference. So this is really an important occasion. The last point I want to make is that our effort in connecting ocean to climate is not limited just to climate convention. We are working across all of the multilateral environmental agreements. We were in Cali, CBD, COP16, and I was very impressed of all the various things that I had seen. One of the things that really stood out was the campaign that your country had launched in promoting Our Ocean Conference in Cali. So not only are we working with multilateral environmental agreements, we are also working with G20. In fact, Ocean 20 is an initiative that is launched by Woodside Oceanographic Institution and World Economic Forum and the United Nations Global Compact, along with few Brazilian institutions. The communique was released today, and it was presented to President Lula yesterday. And there is an official function on the 16th with the Troika, India, Brazil, and South Africa. And our hope is that when it moves to United States the following year, that this will continue. The last thing I want to do is to very briefly introduce Secretary Kerry's video. He's unable to be here, but then had sent a video message. If we can play that video, please.
My friends, it's really great to be able to be with you from long distance as you gather at the margins of the COP in Baku to make the announcement and to launch the 2025 Our Ocean Conference ahead in Korea. I'm especially grateful for Korea taking on this challenge and for being willing to make the 10th anniversary as important as it should be. As you know, a decade ago, we set out on this journey in Washington, D.C., with the very first Our Ocean Conference. And we were motivated, all of us, by a shared hope that we would produce the determination, the commitment to protect our ocean for future generations. Obviously, what we're seeing now is increasing challenge because it is particularly linked to the climate challenge and the increased changes in the ocean, particularly the warming, having a profound effect on countries around the world. Back in Washington, when we began this effort, we didn't just want to hold an event. but we wanted to galvanize a moment. We wanted to move people to grow a movement on a global basis. And I believe that since then, our impact has grown deeper than we might have anticipated. Over these 10 years, we've made possible extraordinary progress. Nations and companies have made billions of dollars in commitments for marine protection, and we've expanded marine protected areas around the planet. We've reduced plastic pollution, though obviously we have a long way to go. We've tackled illegal fishing, but still we have more to do. And we have promoted sustainable blue economies. These are really no small achievements, to be honest with you. They reflect the hard work of countries and organizations and individuals worldwide. And they prove that when we come together, when we make our minds up to try to move in a multilateral fashion, we can actually deliver real results. Collectively, at the Our Oceans conferences, there have been over $11.3 billion worth of new commitments that were made in Athens. And those, of course, are piled on top of a decade with the previous 2,100 pledges by different nations around the world and different corporations and others, all of whom have created a galvanizing force for the ambition that the Our Oceans Conference has become. So, my friends, while we can be proud of this progress, every one of us knows there is still an amazing amount to be done. The challenge has indeed even grown, even as we've been putting the focus on the oceans. And because the stakes are so high, accountability obviously has to rise with it, or we're just not going to get the job done. The fact is that we are now in a race against time itself, where the scale and the scope of the challenge has actually grown. So, as a result, we have to determine that our efforts, our commitment is going to grow in order to meet the moment and keep faith with our own ambition. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is no time to rest when more than 60% of the coral reefs that host over 25% of marine life are threatened. 90% are in danger by 2030 at the current rate that we're going. And there's no time to rest when less than 3% of the world's oceans are highly protected. And there's no time to rest when scientists tell us that our actions in this decade are what will forever shape our ability to be able to stop the collapse of the ocean ecosystem and prevent the worst of the global crisis. Our ocean, as we all know, and what we must do to educate people around the world, the ocean is under increasing threat from the climate crisis, from pollution, from overexploitation. So as we look forward to Busan, this milestone, 10th conference, is not a celebration, though we celebrate that we're at the 10th conference. It's really a moment where we have to recommit to the call of action that prompted this in the first place. And I know that working with Korea, everyone must and will come to the table and make bold, actionable commitments. And together we can mark a decade of progress and look ahead with renewed ambition and hope for our ocean and our planet. One thing I just mentioned to everybody, the shipping industry listened and measured the facts and literally stood up and did some important things that are putting the entire industry on a track to be able to have a turnover in the ships that ply the oceans of the world so that they will now be either carbon-free or near carbon-free, very low carbon in the propulsion systems. That's a big change. That's the kind of thing we need from people all over the world. Figure out what it is that you can do to make the difference, to reduce the emissions, to reduce the heat, to reduce the acidification, to reduce the over exploitation, and turn this great ship of the world around so that we are moving in the right direction. Together, we can mark a decade of progress, and we can look ahead with renewed ambition and hope for our planet. But we have to all make those decisions and work to implement them together. So I look forward to being with all of you in Busan next April. And I look forward especially to continuing the momentum that we have created over these last 10 years. Onwards, together.
Now it is my great pleasure to invite Ana Maria Laura, another dear friend, to take her place here as the moderator of the panel. She is the Senior Director of the Ocean Conservancy and one of the key actors in really connecting ocean to climate solutions.
Thank you, Rama. Thank you, Rama. And also thank you to Woods Hole, of course, for the Ocean Pavilion, doing such a great job, as Secretary Kerry just mentioned, of educating even the folks here who care about climate about the role the ocean can play. So thank you, and thank you to today's event hosts. Of course, we're here to talk about the Our Ocean Conference, and this distinguished panel will give their perspectives on the role that it plays, the important role it plays in catalyzing ocean policy. It has really served as a vital platform for the global ocean community to recognize the importance of the ocean to all humanity and to foster international cooperation for a sustainable ocean. As Secretary Kerry mentioned, the more than 2,600 commitments made over the years are valued at approximately $140 billion. And the Our Ocean has set priorities, as Secretary Kerry mentioned, for nations in terms of the MPAs that they have created. Also, it has driven international policy. I believe it really galvanized the Port State Measures Agreement to be adopted. And it has elevated the ocean climate connection, and we see that here in the UNFCCC. So I'd like to invite the speakers to join the stage, and I will introduce them briefly and then invite them to give some introductory remarks. His Excellency Kim Sung-bum, Deputy Minister for the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries from the Republic of Korea. Also joining us, Dr. Dionysia Theodora Avianinopoula, Special Envoy for the Greek Prime Minister for the Ocean, Hellenic Republic. And Dr. Sue Biniaz, the Principal Deputy Special Envoy for Climate from the U.S. State Department. Thank you all for being here. Deputy Minister Sung-bum, the floor is yours.
How long? 5 minutes? 10 minutes?
5 minutes.
10 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sung-bum Kim, Deputy Minister of Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries from the Republic of Korea. It's my great pleasure to share the progress we are making in the journey to prepare the 10th Our Ocean Conference. I'm standing here as a government official who is leading a team that is preparing the event within the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the advisory group of the OOC with my dear colleague from Greece. We are co-chairing the advisory group that is composed of previous host countries. And we are meeting every 2 months virtually. We are discussing various issues in preparing the OOC, as well as inviting future OOC hosts as well. But today I would like to focus on the 10th OOC in terms of how we think we are trying to make the event unique. We'll talk about 5 elements, small and large. And the first one is that we are taking advantage of having secretariat for the first time in the history of OOC. It was announced at the 9th OOC in Greece that the World Resources Institute would serve as a secretariat for the Our Ocean Conference. We have already begun working together, and we are asking them to do some research work that I will mention later. So they have recruited a specialist person in helping the organization of the 10th OC. The second element that I would like to share with you is the connection with other important international events. Actually, next year, the Republic of Korea is the host country of the APEC summit. I'm sure that you are familiar with term. The Asia Pacific countries get together every year, and the host country is allowed to do some events, including some specific issues. So we have proposed to have ocean-related ministers meeting in connection with the OC. So we are planning to have those meetings back to back. So our ocean conference will take place from 28th to 30th of April, and we are having the ministerial meeting on 1st of May. So one of the reasons why we are proposing this is it's twofold. So I think one is to get more people at the high level by hosting two events, especially at the ministerial level. And the other one is, of course, we need to work together, not only at the regional basis, but also on a global basis. So I think combining those two events will bear good results. Third element that I'd like to share is that we are reviewing, with the help of the Secretariat, the commitments that the nations and organizations have made over the last decade. We are not proposing to criticize anything else. But we need to see that the commitments are implemented. So we are asking the members and organizations who has made commitment to update the progress they have made. And then based on that updated information, the Secretariat will review what's happening out there out of more than 2,600 commitments. In addition, we will ask the countries and organizations to share their stories about their experience, their lessons learned from their activities in implementing those commitments. So I think we will be able to share some of the stories, hopefully good stories and success stories, but stories that face difficult situation would also be beneficial to all other members, so that the countries learn from those activities and bring back to their home to implement their commitments. So this is one of the ideas that the Korea is really working hard as a host of 10th OOC. This idea came from our discussion with the representatives of the United States in Costa Rica. So we talked about how we make our event meaningful as we are celebrating 10th event. So during the deliberations between member states and, of course, discussion with the members of the advisory group, we have reached a kind of conclusion that might be helpful for the participants of the OOC in Busan next year. Fourth point I'd like to make is that we are proposing as a special theme, in addition to the 6 existing themes, including marine protected area, blue economy, etc. So we are proposing digital oceans as a special theme. So we believe that digital technologies will help us in tackling the challenges that we are facing, not only in the climate crisis, but also in fisheries, transportation, port operations, everything. So if you look at the leaflets that you may have on your chair, so we are providing 6 issues in addition to the digital oceans. Because of the space, we are not providing those themes in detail, but if you look at our website, we are providing the concept note for that. Final element I'd like to propose is to look at the organization of our ocean conference in the future. So although we are discussing who will be the next host among the members of the advisory group, but as a co-chair, I felt that we need to think about and make progress in terms of the organizing the OOC in general, and including the hosting countries and those things. So I'm proposing that we discuss this issue among the members of the advisory group, and then if there is kind of consensus, then we'll come back to the plenary in Busan, hoping that we can make bold decision in terms of making this event in a more sufficient and systematic way. And that concludes my first intervention. I look forward to seeing you all in Busan next year. Thank you.
Looking forward to the next and the 10th Our Ocean Conference. We'll now take a look backwards to the most recent Our Ocean Conference. And Dr. Aviananopoulou, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Greece and the Prime Minister of the Hellenic Republic, I'm very honored to address this event today and also to convey to you the messages of the Ocean Conference 9, the messages that we bring to COP29. And you're absolutely right. There is no COP without the Ocean Pavilion. It should not be. This is where all started, in the ocean, and the ocean is our solution. Well, in April 2024, Greece, a maritime nation and leader in global shipping, organized the 9th Our Ocean Conference and the Youth Leadership Summit in close cooperation with the U.S. Department of State. Thank you so much for your invaluable assistance. And with the participation of all of you, with 130 countries, 11 heads of state, 60 ministers, 20 international organizations, and more than 3,000 high-level delegates from the epistemic and the civil society, the local authorities, and the private sectors. New commitments for the oceans amount to 471 that existed our original target of 350, so we're very happy about it, amounting to some $11.5 billion in the following action areas: climate change and the ocean nexus, the marine protected areas, sustainable fisheries, maritime safety, sustainable blue economy, and marine pollution. Greece also emphasized on sustainable tourism in the coastal areas and islands, green shipping, which encourages a wide range of environmentally friendly actions to control pollution and promote decarbonization, and the reduction of marine pollution from plastics and microplastics, as well as the green transition in the Mediterranean. At this point, the leadership of the Ministry of Environment of Greece, it was invaluable. And at this point, I would like to welcome the Executive Director, the Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, for his pivotal role in our ocean conference. Well, other key sectors and messages that came from all over the world elevate the role of women in ocean protection, the need for new and additional ocean finance, because SDG 14 continues to be underfinanced up to today, and the support for the adoption of the new agreement on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction under the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, well, namely our beloved BBNJ agreement, which is still not ratified by an adequate number of countries in order to come into effect, so we need to keep working on this goal. It is worth saying that in the context of the OC9, announcements were made on the progress of the existing actions and the successful implementation of commitments made at previous OC conferences. In this regard, it is noted that 47% of the declared marine protected areas globally have resulted from commitments made by countries at OC conferences from 2014 to date. Secretary Kerry mentioned this in his introductory note, and I think this is a very important legacy of the OCs and Secretary Kerry himself. While a new tool was presented by the US on ocean and climate national strategic plans that was warmly presented by the epistemic community, and Greece intends on following on this, and hopefully other countries as well, because we do need to have strategic plans on climate and ocean. Otherwise, we will never understand how important this nexus is. Greece, for its part, announced 21 specific commitments, totaling about 780 million euros, mainly in the areas, as we said before, on marine protected areas, marine pollution response, sustainable fisheries, and the blue economy. The most important of the national commitments are the creation of the 2 new marine parks on the Ionian and the Aegean Sea, which will cover approximately 32% of our national waters. Also, we announced monitoring and surveillance systems of the MPAs using new technologies and a ban by 2030 of certain fishing practices such as bottom trawling. The Prime Minister himself announced the launch of a new decarbonization fund for the Green Islands, and also 12 harbors in Greece will be equipped with cold ironing, while Greece will support low-emission ships. Numerous events took place with and on the occasion of their 9th Ocean Conference that gave political visibility to a number of important issues, among which the need to assist more the small island states that face the impacts from the sea level rise, and the need to raise more funding for adaptation actions, and also the need for immediate action to tackle climate change. This is also in the core of COP29. Well, just to make a long story short, because this is a long story, the importance that our Ocean Conference 9 brings and attributes to COP29 would be about the protection of the 30 by 30, the 30% of the oceans by 2030, because we need to develop new action plans and new MPAs that are also climate savvy. And we also need to finance more blue economy, the renewable resources of energy, the offshore wind parks and other vehicles are there for us to innovate and for us to achieve both goals, the ocean and the climate protection. In front of us in the coming months, we also have other challenges that relate to the protection of the ocean, such as the adoption of a very important legally binding treaty to ban plastics, and especially the single-use plastics, and also new actions for the green transition of the shipping sector and the reduction of the emissions from this conference. And of course, the application of the new technologies, artificial intelligence, digital and space technologies for the protection of the oceans, especially in these 2 fields, the green shipping and the use of new technologies and the digital. Well, Greece and Korea and the US, we have a lot to work together. Actually, our 3 countries, they have already started working on joint programs on that. And us being in Busan, it would be a great opportunity to continue this important dialogue and cooperation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in Greece, the global community was reminded once again that the ocean is our ally in combating climate change. A healthy ocean can absorb 90% of the heat of our planet. It sequestrates 30% of the carbon emissions. It generates 50% of our oxygen. Let's always remember that we owe to the ocean every second breath we take. If we treat the nexus of the ocean climate effectively, then we will owe to the ocean the survival of humanity and the ecosystems. There is no green without blue. Let's keep the blue going. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dionysia. The leadership that Greece demonstrated as the host was really remarkable. And so we'll turn to Dr. Subinias. The U.S. has founded the Our Ocean Conference and is still key advisor, so would love to hear your reflections on where we go from here.
Thank you so much to the panelists, to you, to Rama, for having us all here. First, I wanted to thank not only Greece for an amazing Our Ocean Conference a couple months ago, but Korea for taking on this big task. The United States has hosted 2 of these OOCs and co-hosted one of them with Palau, so we are in a good position to know how much work goes into the hosting of one of these conferences. As you know, and you heard from Secretary Kerry, this was kind of one of his brainchilds back in 2014. And the vision that he had back there was to do something very different from the usual kind of ocean conference. First of all, he didn't want it to involve any negotiations. As a negotiator, I actually love negotiations, but when I went to my first OOC, which was the one in Palau, I totally saw what he meant by that, which was there was no sort of negative atmosphere or, competitive situation or hostility or any of that. It was all positive, because everybody was there to make some kind of contribution or commitment. Nobody was fighting over, language or what the declaration would say. Also, he wanted to bring in stakeholders who would not normally be part of an intergovernmental conference. So he wanted to bring in the private sector and NGOs and ports or, whoever was involved had a stake in protection of the ocean. He also wanted to make it short. So instead of like a 2-week COP, it's more like a 2-day affair. Many more people can come, of course, to 2 days. And it's also, more fun when it's such a short amount of time. So in our view, these OOCs, 9 of them so far, they've been very meaningful in terms of the commitments that have been taken on, and they've also been very kind of lasting in terms of the commitments. So what do I mean by that? In terms of how meaningful they are, and many people have cited numbers, but I'll cite a few of my own. If you look at the numbers over the 9 OOCs, it's 2,500 announcements, which is pretty amazing. 139 billion, rounded up to 140 billion. And if you look at the actors, they include, of course, national governments, private sector, NGOs, philanthropy, and all kinds of members of the ocean community. The Our Ocean Conference has been an incubator for many, many initiatives. Examples: the Global Fishing Watch, the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification. Both of them were launched at OOCs, and they continue to make a big impact on ocean protection. OOC has also been a catalyst on ocean conservation. More than 3 million square miles of ocean have been protected through MPAs, other area-based management tools. And this amounts to 40% of the implemented MPAs around the world. So in terms of meaningful, I think it would be hard to say that those numbers do not tell a meaningful story. But the other part is lasting. One of the reasons or kind of objectives of Secretary Kerry when he started this was for there to be some kind of accountability. What he didn't want was a situation where you have a conference, everybody takes on these kind of political commitments, and then the next year everybody forgets about them. That's been one of the criticisms of the climate conference every year is you have a different host, they have different priorities, everybody gets some kind of political benefit from signing on to 25 declarations. The next year you have a completely different host with different declarations, and nobody is really accountable for, did they do the thing they said they were going to do. In part, this new Troika arrangement, is trying to combat that by building much more continuity from COP to COP. But I think the Our Ocean Conference actually already has that in a couple ways. One way is that every year, governments and these other organizations that have taken on commitments, they're actually asked not only to bring new commitments to the table, but to report back on what they're doing to implement their previous commitments. Korea has said that they're going to place a strong emphasis on reporting the status of previous commitments as we move into the second decade of the OOC, which we applaud. And we're also looking forward to the new Secretariat's report on kind of the 10-year span of the OOC and take a look at every single commitment that has been made to see, how we're doing. So I'll stop there, but I think those are, kind of substance and accountability would be two of the things that make OOC different from other conferences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. It's amazing to hear about what the U.S. inspired and where we are now. Digging in on that last point about how Our Ocean Conference is a little different, back to the Deputy Minister. 2025 is going to be a big year for the ocean, the Our Ocean Conference, of course, but also the UN Ocean Conference, as been mentioned in June. So they're quite close together. How can governments and civil society organizations leverage these events so they're mutually impactful and reinforcing?
Thank you. Thank you for that very nice but difficult question. Actually, the Korea and France, who is the host of the next UNOC in Nice, France, we have had discussions about how to collaborate in terms of the OOC that will take place in late April and the UNOC taking place in mid-June. There is only 1.5 months time. I've had meetings with the special envoy, the French special envoy, who is organizing the event, and then we have agreed to work together. And one of the ideas to connect those events is I haven't decided yet, and I haven't talked to him. But my proposal is we'll ask them to provide us an opportunity to present the outcomes of our ocean conference in UNOC, so that the international oceans community can be aware of the outcomes, and then let them think about how to connect those activities, hoping that we can get more concrete, actionable decisions and commitments. And another things that the Our Ocean Conference can contribute the work of the UNOC is the issue of BBNJ. So the international community is saying that we need to get enough ratification before the third UNOC, which is June next year. I don't know whether this will be possible, but I know that many countries are making very hard efforts to realize that. So in Busan next year, I think before 1.5 months before the let's say target line that the international community is saying, that we need to review the situation, how many countries have ratified, how many countries will be ratified in a month's time. That I think that review can contribute, encourage, stimulate those countries who are not reached their goal to think about and then make actions more speed. I think those things that we can work together and then make those events both valuable to the international ocean community. Thank you.
Speaking from the NGO community, it's really great to get homework from you all. So we'll do our part and try to encourage as much of this action and commitments as possible. So speaking of commitments, and Dionysia, you mentioned, Greece made many ambitious commitments this year, including in the mitigation and adaptation space for climate. Can you talk a little bit more about the role the host country plays in really setting the tone of the Our Ocean and mobilizing strong commitments from other countries? What does that look like behind the scenes to really be mobilizing these ambitious commitments?
Thank you very much for this question, but let me start by commenting that the first impact that the OOC has, it's on the host country. So I think that Greece exercised leadership, but Greece was given the opportunity to do so. And Greece took very bold commitments because of their ocean conference. That's true. The Secretary General had a lot of plans in his drawer, but he had to have the chance to open the drawer and present it to the rest of the government, to the rest of the world. And this happened with other ministries as well. And the ministries within Greece, they had the chance to coordinate, like the Ministry of Shipping, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, all the other organizations, the local authorities. So first, the OC generate leadership within the country. And then the country, by reaching out to other countries, to other international organizations, to other groups of influential actors, then it gives and receives back. So we learned a lot, and by communicating with these groups, we were able to maybe share some of our inspiration because we were very inspired to undertake their ocean conference. We were very happy. So there was kind of an enthusiasm, and that is still there, actually. And this enthusiasm is still in Greece and the region because it was an enthusiasm that came both from the local communities and on the highest level. For example, tomorrow, the Prime Minister of Greece is going to address the theme of their Ocean Conference 9 and then the passage to our Ocean Conference 10, along with you, Sue, first of all, and then the Prime Minister, your envoy for OOC 10, actually. We're going to have this high-level event at the Greek Pavilion at 2 o'clock, trying to raise awareness for OC10 as well. And then let's not forget that Greece belongs to two geographical groups. The one is formal and the other informal. The first formal geographical group has to do with the EU. Greece is a member state of the European Union, so we were able to communicate back and forth with the Commission, the European Commission, and the other member states, and also foster some new announcements on behalf of the Commission. Not to forget that the European Commission made new announcements during our Ocean Conference 9 that actually raised up to 2.9 billion euros. So new commitments. And then the Mediterranean region, because it's part of the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is a very sensitive ocean, like sea, right? And we were able to coordinate more. So by hosting OC9, Greece was able to coordinate more within the region, within the neighborhood, but fortunately with all the global ocean community. We belong to this, and we're really, really honored to be part of this community.
Homework, right? Because I think that's so important for us to think about what the host country is thinking of for their action and in their region, as was mentioned already, Korea thinking about APEC. So really helpful insights here for all of us who want to see action at the Our Ocean Conference. Sue, turning to you, given that we are here at COP29, Can you talk about some of what you'd hope to see in terms of ocean climate action and ambition at the Our Ocean Conference?
Yes, I think so. Well, first of all, the Our Ocean Conference has historically had these 6 pillars. And that's one of the areas of continuity from conference to conference. Everybody focuses on the 6, not necessarily in the exact same way, and there's a lot of kind of national discretion when it comes to the host country. But I think the climate area, climate ocean nexus or linkage or whatever you want to call it, is now the largest, or has become the largest of those pillars. So obviously from a climate point of view, we think that's a good thing. And to give you a sense, now this has not always been the case for the last 10 years, because we were not very climate focused for 4 of those years. But over the last 4 years, here are some of the things that the United States has announced that relate to climate ocean nexus at the OOCs. Millions of dollars invested in ocean climate research related to ocean acidification, sea level rise, extreme weather events, projects to support adaptation and resilience for vulnerable coastal communities, both in the U.S. and in other countries. We announced, I think I actually announced this, our framework for the green shipping corridors. That concept had just come out of COP26 in Glasgow, and we decided to figure out what does that exactly mean to have a green shipping corridor. And we've announced other actions to decarbonize the shipping sector through the Green Shipping Challenge, which is something we set up together with Norway, I think around COP27. We announced ocean climate funding from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. We announced initiatives to protect coastal blue carbon ecosystems and promote other nature-based solutions. And we announced technical and financial support for the deployment of offshore renewable energy. And a lot of those things might not have kind of come to fruition if we hadn't had an OOC on the horizon where, we needed to bring announcements. So it definitely had a catalyzing effect with respect to U.S. actions, U.S. Financial expenditures. So obviously we hope this kind of momentum and emphasis on ocean climate will continue at the Korean OOC, and we think it's kind of promising that they're going to focus on the digital ocean, which provides an opportunity for innovative technologies for ocean-based climate solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking at all of these commitments that you have mentioned and looking forward to the Republic of Korea, I just wonder if you each want to end on anything, in particular, one word or a short statement about what the ocean community you think can really feel here at the climate conference. What's the momentum? What do we want to be saying when we walk out of COP that we feel in terms of ocean climate action?
Let me start, and then I'll be brief. Well, I've seen a lot of catchphrases and wordings throughout these events. I think the theme is pretty much the same. And then we are proposing our slogan or catchphrase of the 10th OC is our ocean, our action. So all I need to is take action. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe 4 things, 2 formal and 1 informal and 1 kind of in between. Formally, we hope that we pick up on last year's global stocktake outcome, which laid out a roadmap for keeping 1.5 degrees alive. And we're trying to make sure that that doesn't get lost. Speaking of continuity, we think it should be reaffirmed and strengthened and operationalized through the bodies under the Paris Agreement. And I think that would make people feel better about ocean impacts. From an adaptation point of view, we're in the middle, the midway point in elaborating the global goal on adaptation. So from that point of view, I think people could feel right now there are about 8,000 indicators that have been identified, but this COP is supposed to kind of shrink those down to size and focus on the most important ones. So I think people could feel better from an adaptation point of view through that process. Third is the Ocean Climate Dialogue. Now that's the one that's not really action exactly of the entire COP, but it's something, a few years ago when we were helping to, with Ocean Conservancy, trying to put together this Friends of the Ocean and Climate, I don't think we ever imagined we would end up with an annual Ocean Climate Dialogue. Just a few years ago, we were trying to get the word ocean, into the vocabulary of this process, and now we're almost struggling to think of what to focus on every year because there's so many. We just had an ocean climate dialogue, and now we're going to have another one. So it's kind of a funny situation to be in. And then fourth would just be these kinds of action agenda events, which, this COP is chock full of them. So I think people should be inspired by that as well. Thank you.
Well, if you enter the place for COP19, you will read at the beginning, at the entrance, that if we keep our business as usual scenario, then the global temperature rise will be not up to 1.5 Celsius degrees as we wish, but double this number. 2.8, even more than 3 degrees Celsius. That would have a catastrophic effect on Earth, and we all know that, right? So we need to keep the sea level rise when it should be. We need to keep the blue carbon when it is. We need to protect blue carbon. We need to restore blue carbon. We need to have our ocean as our ally. And the only way to do that is to keep our ocean healthy. This is what we should know, and we have to use all the technology existing today and innovate in order to save our oceans. This is why we have to meet in Busan in Korea in April. Thank you very much for hosting.
Well, thank you all, and thank you all for being here. Something that Greece did at the Our Ocean Conference at the end, they brought up all of the past Our Ocean conferences, and it was inspiring to see countries for 10 years who had gone through, as hosts, everything they could possibly do for the ocean and climate and protection and fisheries. And this is just a little it's a little sample of what that looked like and what we look forward to at Korea. So thank you all for hosting the Our Ocean Conference, past, present, and thank you all for being here.
Maybe a quick picture.